So what stings more? Buyer's remorse or seller's remorse? Hey there, I have an unboxing video for you today. This is an order I placed with Mile High Comics, and I will be honest, it was a complete seller's remorse buy. Impulse buy, FOMO buy, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what, it's not fear of missing out, fear of screwing up. I don't know what it is, but I was thinking, a lot of times if a book pops in the market, becomes hot, and you don't have it, there is that fear that you've missed the book. Maybe you whiffed on a pre-order, you saw it at your LCS at a decent price, went back and it was gone. I I definitely experienced that level of buyer's remorse, but I'm able to move past it a lot easier than seller's remorse. For some reason, the seller's remorse sting just sticks with me for a long time. Like the memory of a book that I sold either too early or for less than I think I should have sold it for, timing was off, whatever the case may be. I end up thinking about that book a lot. There's one that comes to mind, like X-Men 155. I have several examples I could go through. I'm not going to go through each one, but I've listed books for sale and maybe didn't realize that I had them in a higher grade than really what the fair market value dictates. Because a lot of my analysis is really around finding more value when the book is in a better condition than it really is for fair market value. What I mean is, if an average fair market value is $10, but in a 9.8 it's a $200 or $300 book, I often seek out those books and try to get them in that 9.8 because folks just look at the fair market value and say it's a $10 book, and they don't realize that maybe it's a tough book, it's a hard book to get in a 9.8, there's a low census, there's lots of different factors there, and that's one of my target areas. And what happens is I will acquire these books, I'll kind of forget that I purchased the book for that reason, and then I will list it for sale, and I determine my sale price based on a number of factors. I certainly look at graded potential, but fair market value kind of readjusts that sale price, that final sale price that I list a book for. So I've had some books go up for sale that get readjusted because the FMV is lower than the projected slabbed high grade value, and kind of drags the value down, and then the book gets listed for sale. It almost sells right away. That's another thing that triggers seller's remorse for me, is if I list a book and you get that buy it now alert that you just sold and you're excited, but then you're like, oh man, I just put this book up for sale. So what did I do wrong? Did I forget? Did I put the decimal place in the wrong place? Like, I just start freaking out like I did something wrong. So in this order that we're going to unbox, there's a book in here that I believe the day that I sold it, I went right back to Mile High and bought another copy. And I'll talk about that experience when I get to that book. So let's get to the unboxing. That book is in here. Several other pretty good books are in here. And as always with Mile High, I'm hoping to get some of these in a higher grade than they're listed for. I have a couple books I bought very fine as well. So I'm trying to still play that game to see if they actually are overgrading. So that experiment is still continuing. So some fun books in here to take a look at. So let's get to the unboxing. All right, here is the envelope. This is the order from Mile High Comics, the FedEx shipping that I always choose from FedEx. This was shipped at the end of March 2022. It defaults to USPS. I always choose FedEx. I've had better luck with FedEx than USPS. You pay few dollars insurance depending on the amount of your order, but I always try and make sure I'm ordering enough to unlock that free shipping. And yeah, so let's get to it. Let's open this up. Okay, here we go. These are the books in the order. Let's check out and see what I got. First book is Secret Wars number 10. I got this book. It was listed in V-Fine, otherwise known as Very Fine. This is just a fantastic Mike Zeck Doctor Doom cover. So I've been picking up some Secret Wars books in anticipation for any sort of MCU Secret Wars story. I believe that if Secret Wars is coming to the MCU, it's probably going to be the multiverse version, but I'm still grabbing these anyway because it was a series I missed out on as a kid for some reason. I just didn't collect Secret Wars, and I don't know why, because it would have been a great series for me to read back then. So I wanted to open this up and just take a look. I may not grade every book, but this is listed as Very Fine. So we can see here there are definitely some blemishes and creases. Right there, there's some corner blunting and things like that. It feels just slightly dirty, possibly right in here. But, most of the time, the Mile High Comics books need a little bit of pressing anyway, even in near mint. There's definitely some rounding here on that corner as well. So overall, yeah, it is probably a very fine-ish type book. I'm not sure what grade I would specifically give this yet. Probably around an 8 or an 8.5. There are some color breaking spine ticks. One there, a couple there. But I think if I could press it probably pretty clean, it might max out at maybe a 9 or a 9.2. But for now, I think Very Fine is probably a fair grade for that one. And I'm continuing that experiment of trying to figure out, what is the average grade for a book listed as Very Fine versus an average grade of a book listed near mint. Always love this. They always slip this in here. No backer board on this. This is Amazing Spider-Man 372. No real significance other than good value here on this book. Has a Black Cat appearance, Mark Bagley art. Not a particular key issue per se. But early 90s Amazing Spider-Man after the McFarlane and Eric Larson run. Batman 442. Again, no backing board. But this is the first appearance of Tim Drake in the classic Robin costume with George Perez on cover art. So tough book to get in high grade. Lots of spine ticks on this one. And by lots, I mean maybe half dozen. Can already kind of see there. But overall, tough book because of the dark border. All right, I think these will go back to back. This is Amazing Spider-Man 406. I got 2 copies of this. Again, just looking for value. This book in a CGC 9.8, I think goes around $200-$300. And I think this is leftover value that was pushed from the first Into the Spider-Verse movie because of the Olivia Octavius, Lady Ock, whatever you want to call her, Lady Octopus. I believe she did not survive that movie, so I'm not sure why the value is still holding. And I did a quick check on eBay, and there's like 1 copy up there in a CGC 9.8 for sale, and it's way overpriced. So just according to my numbers, my analysis, this was good value. That these were very, very affordable, and I'll go over the numbers like I typically do in the order analysis after I finish going through the unboxing. But yeah, just good value here. Didn't have this issue. I thought, why not grab a couple? And a lot of times you can get these in a 9.8 from Mile High just because they don't have a 9.8 designation. And a lot of these newer books, I would say, or more modern, obviously not a new release, but I'm able to have more success with these, getting them in high grade. Now, back to the very fine option. I got this one. This is Creatures on the Loose, number 34, and it's featuring Man Wolf, yes, but the other significance here, this is the first cover art by George Perez. I was not a George Perez collector, or maybe I didn't understand the significance of George Perez when I was younger. Certainly appreciate the man and all of his contributions now that I'm older and I can kind of look back and study more of what he's contributed to the industry. And when I was just kind of going through some retrospectives on George Perez, I saw this book discussed as his first cover art. And when I looked it up on Mile High, they had a copy, and it was listed as very fine. So I want to open this up and see, take a look at the grade, and just again, I'm always curious to see what is a very fine book from Mile High Comics. Now this one, dirty, so would need a clean, but the creases on the back are all pressable. That looks to be some sort of stain. Again, that would maybe require some cleaning there as well. So the back is really, really dirty. So that's probably a whole grade loss just for the dirt. Another grade and a half for the creases. The front looks really, really nice though. And I think that's what I'm noticing. So look at this, the corner, just slightly blunted, just barely. I would say that's an acceptable corner if I'm looking at this, trying to figure out if it's a 9/8. Definitely a little bit of a crease there as the light shines on it. You could see it just down the spine. That would need to be pressed out. So there are some little nicks and creases, but a slight, I don't know if it's like a little bit of a scratch or something right in there. Actually, no, that's the art. It's right there. A little bit of a, I don't know, just a bit of a dimple on the cover there. Corners look great. Edges look really, really nice. Corner, probably, like I would say, that's probably a 9/6, 9/4 type corner. But the spine is in really good shape. I don't see a lot of harsh spine ticks. There's really just one main one right there that's got a little bit of dirt. That one's a little dirty too. It's weird. But there's a color breaking spine tick right in there. So overall, from a presentation perspective, I think it looks better than a very fine. It does need a press, but I think that this one, if it got a proper clean-in press, could potentially move up to a 9/4. So this might be a fun one to work on. And this is exactly what you want in terms, no, you don't, I didn't mean you never want to finish high school. It's exactly what you want from a book that you want to clean and press. You want to be able to give it a nice, gentle wipe down on the back, maybe some slight erasing, and then you want to have these non-color breaking creases. But this would be a really fun one to work on to see if I can improve, because right now it probably is sitting at around a 7.5, maybe an 8. I think the structure of the book is really nice, so maybe I'm generous and I give it an 8. But I really think that the ceiling for that book could be as high as even a 9.4. I don't know if it could get up to a 9.6 with the corner the way that it is and that color break right smack in the middle of the book, but it would be interesting to try. So wanted to grab that one, the first cover art for George Perez. Okay, Secret Wars 2. This is the first full and cover appearance of the Beyonder. There is rumor out there that the Beyonder is going to be in the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur animated show. This book was trending up for a while, and then it crashed hard. And of course, when did I buy it? I bought it as it was trending up. So by the time this got back in my possession and I unboxed it just moments earlier, it is way back down and I ended up overpaying. But I didn't have it. It is one of these, like, I love people that in the community, they're like, oh, this is a dollar bin book all day long. I did not pay $1 for it. I could not find it for $1. But nevertheless, here it is in near mint. So I've got it. So when the Beyonder shows up somewhere, and an animated show makes sense for that kind of character if you think about the character style, and also to me that's a clue that when Secret Wars comes into the MCU, it's going to be the multiverse Secret Wars, and not this one. If one of the main villains from Secret Wars 2 is coming up in an animated show, then yeah, we're probably looking at the multiverse Secret Wars. And it makes sense, and I believe the Secret Wars is probably going to do like a hard reset on the MCU once that's over with. All right, a couple more to go. This is another very fine book. This is Daredevil Man Without Fear, 270. And if you've been watching Moon Knight, right there in episode 2, that's Mephisto, right? Mephisto's coming out of the purple hole in the ground. No, not Mephisto, just a jackal. Okay, fine. This is the first appearance of Blackheart. This is the son of Mephisto. And it's almost just a running gag right now, and I'm sure everyone at Marvel, both in film, TV, and animation, as well as in the publishing departments, are always having fun thinking that everybody wants to see Mephisto. So will we ever see him? I don't know, but I like to grab anything related to him just in case anyway. So this is another very fine copy, so I'm just kind of showing you the condition here. Very typical, again, creasing near the spine, random little tiny nicks and dimples and creases along the cover, a little bit of softening on the corner. But, probably could be cleaned up and pressed up at least over the 9.0. Here's a major crease, though, that would have to come out, so probably a lot of humidity would need. Right there is just a giant fold that goes all the way across. So that's pretty rough. So that alone, again, if I don't press it, it's probably going to knock this down a couple of grades. But the back looks okay from kind of the crease and the fold. There's a little bit in here that could possibly need to be pressed out just with age. It's just kind of the pages and the ads have kind of worn through. However, the back spine is pretty awful, right? Lots of color breaking spine ticks. So would I press this book? Probably not. Is it a very fine? It is not. It's probably now down closer to fine. So I'd probably end up somewhere around a 6.5 on this one. So that's unfortunate that with so many color breaks on the spine ticks, it's not even worth my time. So that's something that you want to, if you're thinking about pressing a book, right, you want to look at something like this and go, okay, so if I can get that giant crease out, then yes, but you can't get these out. These you can't get out. Those are always going to be there. And so pretend that that's the only thing. And if you're looking at with all those spine ticks, maybe this maxes out at an 8.5, maybe an 8. Depends. Depends on everything else. That soft corner up here that I showed too, that's not coming out in the press. So do you really want to spend a lot of your time on a minor key, moving it from a 6.5 to an 8? I would say no. But to each their own, and to each their own in terms of Star Wars. I am a Star Wars nerd. I do buy the comics like a good comic book Star Wars nerd does. And this is Star Wars Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand, #1. And this is the book that I had seller's remorse over. I had purchased this book from Mile High at the same price that I paid for this copy. And when I opened it up for grading back then, I graded it as a 9.6. And I don't remember if it was a pressing candidate, but it was borderline close to 9.8, but I do believe there was a color break in it that I was just like, it was more of like an eyesore than it was, because it was up in this area here. So it was more of an eyesore, really, where I was like, I wouldn't want to go through the trouble of sending it in for grading. And even if it came back a 9.8, I would see this color break in here. But I didn't have a good feeling that it was going to be a 9.8. So I listed the book as a 9.6 and essentially sold it, I think, at a break even. This book has a very low print run. I think it's about 31,000 on the print run for this one. These Dark Horse Star Wars are typically in bad condition. So out of that 31,000, how many of these are in high grade? I don't know. And I think I sold it in less than 24 hours from when I first posted the book for sale. So I was thinking, well, I didn't lose money, but I was also really bummed because I didn't know if I'd be able to get another 9.6 copy of this book. So I want to grade it here and cross my fingers and see what we have. All right, so at first glance, it has that really shiny, glossy cover, so I'm kind of holding it up with a fist rather than getting fingerprints on it. And the front cover looks really nice. Looks really, really good. The corner looks outstanding. Super sharp on that corner. There's no creasing up and down the spine. Bottom corner looks great. And these corners look all right. Everything's looking really, really good. The tough part with this is there are just, I don't know if I can angle it just right to show you, but there are scratches. Yeah, they're really subtle, very, very thin hairline scratches that kind of go up on these covers. And, it's almost like there's just a little bit of like just a tiny speck of dust or something that are in these bags. And then you put it in the bag and then it just scratches the cover all the way down. I'm being super nitpicky, but it's definitely there. Now, I'm starting to sweat on this because I do feel like it could be a 9.8 candidate, depending on your point of view with that scratch, or am I seeing things? I don't know. So let me turn the book over. Again, another little subtle, tiny scratch, hard to see, really, really hard to see. I can't even get it in the light, so it's that thin. But really strong everywhere else. I'm going to not hold it anymore because I do feel like this has a shot at a 9.8. So I'm going to use the the bag and board here to show you the rest. But the spine looks really strong. So before I rebag this, I'll probably have to just wipe it down with a tissue to get some of the fingerprints off, because that's really the only thing I see with it. And then down here, it's this corner. So does that corner make this a 9.6, or is it going to pass for a 9.8? So the emotional grader in me wants to say 9.8, and then the realistic person who doesn't want to, have hopes and dreams crushed wants to say 9.6 and just live with it. It is not a pressing candidate. I don't like pressing these super glossy Dark Horse books anyway, so I wouldn't press it. It is super close to a 9.8. I just wonder if I would get dinged on these really, really light. I'm trying to get it in here so you could see what I'm talking about, but right there you kind of get it where it says like right between fan club and all the way down. You can kind of see that scratch right there. Again, I'm being super nitpicky. And so this is kind of what happened the last time, is I had a book very similar to this, and I was grading it really, really harshly and gave it the 9.6, and then sold it, and I looked at it again before I put it out for shipment, and I'm like, this could have been a 9.8. So I mailed the book out, and right after I packaged it up, I went right back to Mile High and I placed this order. So let's look at the order details. I can show you what I paid for these books, and we'll look at the current value of some of these and see how I did. All right, here is the order that I placed with Mile High Comics back at the end of March 25th, 2022. This is the longest running discount code I think I've ever seen them keep alive. 60% off since, I think, Thanksgiving of 2021. So we're coming up on about 6 months, roughly, this coupon code. So it may be a permanent code. I'm not sure, but I'm still taking advantage of it where I can. It was a $164.20 order. Again, I unlocked free shipping, paid $7 insurance. And if we move over to the right, you'll see the total cost with that insurance distributed across all the books matches up to make sure that my math is correct. So let's look at the cost of the books and compare them to fair market value. So you, all the way to the far right, raw value, you can see that overall it was a $15.41 loss. I do not believe Mile High is a great place to flip books. It is a place to get books for investment purposes and to get books to potentially clean and press and fix up and improve in that regard. So the big loser here, as I mentioned, was Secret Wars 2, number 3. It currently has a cover price fair market value of $5.70. I paid $28.78. So, you know, all of you folks that got this book for $1 and have held on to multiple copies of it in 9.8, good on you. I just totally screwed up on this one. At the time I was buying it, it was in the ballpark, not quite $28, but it was creeping up to that $15-20 mark, and then just came crashing right back down to about $5. So that's unfortunate. So that was my big loser. The other big loser, so to speak, is that Mara Jade book, but I have a lot of hope that that book will, I think, at some point become significant if Mara Jade is referenced in some way. All it's going to take is something like when Thrawn was mentioned in Mandalorian. If any reference to Mara being alive in the Star Wars universe, or they want to retroactively mention her or bring her into the story and make her canon in terms of the visual media, then I think this is a book that's going to be highly sought after. And I still regret selling the one I had, even though I got this copy. I would have loved to have 2 copies. I'm a big believer in this book. It's hard to find, and like I said, if those folks that have this slabbed, they're commanding top dollar for it. So as it stands right now, while things are very quiet, I definitely am overpaying for it in the moment at almost a $13 loss. Now, what's interesting is this Daredevil 270 that I got as very fine, which I do believe probably does max out around maybe a VF or a VF plus. The fair market value of that book is over $31, and I paid $12.38. So it's telling me that I gained about $19 of value for my collection just by having it even in a very fine state. $5 gain on Secret Wars 10, $5 loss on Creatures on the Loose, loss of $3 on Batman, and then the Amazing Spider-Man 406, just slightly underpriced for a $3.21 gain there. Now, as far as what my grades would be, if we plug in a 9.4, let's look at the CGC values here, and we can see what the potential here is for these books. So if I were to take all of these in a 9.4 from CGC, then I would stand to gain $223.78 of additional value. And a lot of that is coming from the Creatures on the Loose and Daredevil books. I know for a fact that Daredevil is really, again, maybe maxes out at an 8.5 and then drops down to $51, almost at a break even, a $6.40 gain. So I do know that much. Creatures on the Loose, I still think that has the potential to be a 9.4. I don't think it can get any higher than that, but I'll take that at $180 for a $18 investment, plus the cost to get it graded. So not a bad value book there. Nothing else too significant. The Mara Jade, again, has no pricing history at a 9.4. And so this is the fun part. Let's just flip them all to 9.8 just so you can see what the ceiling was here for why I targeted these books. So if they all switch to 9.8, then the ceiling for this order, $2,269.78. So again, this is the high end of the range. And then the low end is kind of that 9.4-ish, although you could make an argument that with Mile High, maybe it's a 9.2, but I use 9.4 just as a nice round number. It's a more common grade, I would say. But look at this, that Creatures on the Loose number 34, almost $600 in a 9.8. ASM 406, I don't know why that's a $250 9.8, but if those books are a 9.8, I'd love to get those graded and sell those for $250. Let's see, Daredevil 270 again, really not worth discussing at 432. That I don't have it in a 9.8, but it's certainly it's a book to be on the lookout for. Because if we're looking at a raw value of about $30 here, and you can find it in high grade, it's worth the $30 pickup because it's $432 slabbed as a 9.8. Batman 442 and a 9.8 is $102. I didn't grade that one, but still nice to see that all of these books in uniform are $100 or more. And that is something, too, that I look at. I certainly look at the 9.4, I look at the 9.8, and I try to target a particular lower fair market value and lower cost, obviously, but I try and compare that to, again, just looking at round numbers, something that has a 9.8 potential of $100 or more. The last book here to talk about is the Star Wars Mara Jade. Now, in a 9.8, it currently has a value as provided by GPA of $465. I took a look at the book a bit more closely. I got rid of the fingerprints and went ahead and just really, really carefully went over the book and graded it. And I looked and examined that corner again, and I gave it the 9.8. That corner, the scratches were not as severe as like when I was holding it up close to my face or the camera. It's really not that bad. And let's see, now I'm seeing fingerprints on it again, but I think it's on the bag. I think that's from my sweat, and I sweated on the outside of the bag, I hope. I'll have to open it up again. But the fingerprints on these glossy books, they're real easy to get off. You just take a piece of tissue, and I put a glove on one hand, held the book down, and then just wiped it with the tissue. It's real easy to get fingerprints off. But you don't want to put fingerprints on the book, put it in the bag, send it off to CGC. They will at least mark you down a half grade just for fingerprints. So anyway, I think this book is a 9.8. I do believe it's a 9.8. I'm trying not to add emotion into it. I really think the scratches are minimal. Could almost be determined as manufacturing. And then that corner softness is borderline acceptable. So I think I'm in good shape. And even if it did come back a 9.6, this is where I was really having that seller's remorse. Even as a 9.6, it is a $66 book, but that's a huge jump from 9.8 to 9.6. So if those 9.8s become, if the community becomes more aware and the market becomes more aware that this is a $500 9.8, people are going to be willing to take a 9.6 and maybe pay a couple $100s for it. So I still think it's a good long-term investment for me. But in terms of realistic grades, if we reset all these to 9.4, put this to 9.8, put the Daredevil back to 8.5, something like that, then, that's a $500 value add. Again, being carried by the Mara Jade book, I understand. But even these 406s are probably, somewhere between a 9.4 and a 9.8. So there's some numbers to play with here. I have to grade them all, obviously, and then, put them all back in here. But I think this is kind of a fair representation of the order. And it really came back down to that seller's remorse. It just stung so much that I would just told myself, find this book, find it again. I think of maybe my top 5 seller's remorse books, I've purchased them all again. There's something about it, and this is why I struggle to sell comics, is because I just don't. I have that collector mentality. It's just in my DNA. And so I end up collecting so much and selling very little. And I don't like to sell my only copy of something. I think that's where the seller's remorse, where it really triggers, is if it's my only copy. I don't mind selling a book if I've got multiples, but boy, it just stings. And it stung so much that I had to grab it. Now, it does look like, in a worst case, I did get the 9.6 back in my collection. So I do feel good about that. And in a best case, I think maybe it forced me to go through the process one more time, and I actually upgraded the comic that I have. I still feel like maybe that one I let go, even with that spine tick, could have been a 9.8. Maybe CGC would have let that slide, but I'll never know. It's gone. But it was a break-even situation originally. I want to invest. I love Star Wars. I do think they're going to do something with Mara Jade. They have to at some point, I believe. She's just too significant of a character in the lore, and I'll be ready for it. Her first cover appearance on Heir to the Empire 4, and her first solo in this book, Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand. All right, there you go. Thank you for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.